Anthony Albanese has made Australia a bloody punchline. While America's wheeling and dealing, locking down trade deals and flexing its military might, what's Albo doing? He's hiding in the shadows like a school kid who forgot his homework. The bloke who's supposed to represent our nation on the global stage is too busy rewriting what it means to be Australian, except no one asked for this new script, and frankly, no one's buying it. You reckon the Anzac spirit was about ducking behind the curtains when the world came knocking? Mate, try saying that to the faces carved into the walls of the Australian War Memorial. We fought, bled, and died beside our allies. We didn't flinch. But now? Now we've got a Prime Minister who practically apologizes for Australia's existence. And it's not just weak, it's embarrassing. Before we wrap into this Albanese disaster, where Albo hides from the world, lets China call the shots and turns free speech into a crime. Slap that like button like it just jacked your rent and called it compassion. Subscribe if you're done being muzzled by spin. And grab the Make Politics Honest Again shirt, wear it to your next protest, petrol run, or just while yelling at the telly. Links in the description. Let's talk about how Albo gets ghosted by Trump like a clingy ex who still thinks there's a chance. The US is holding trade talks left, right and center. Japan? Sorted. South Korea? Deal done. Even bloody Spain's in the room, despite dragging their feet on NATO spending. But Australia? We're standing in the hallway, clutching our little surplus like a peace offering, hoping someone notices us. Spoiler, they don't. And Albo, he just takes it. Shrugs it off like being ignored is all part of the plan. And don't even start on Kevin Rudd. How the hell did he end up back in the room, calling shots like he's some political Yoda? Albo lets him run wild like a dog off leash. Meanwhile, Peter Dutton, who actually had a relationship with the Trump administration, is out in the cold. Why? Because the Liberals were too gutless to stand up during the election. They let media hysteria scare them off backing Trump, and now we've got nothing. No leverage. No seat at the table. Just more bloody speeches about fairness and inclusion while our global standing slips down the drain. And here's the kicker. Albo's cozied up to China like it's his new best mate. You heard that right. The same China that's throwing elbows in the South China Sea, silencing dissidents, and building up its military like there's a world war around the corner. Our Prime Minister reckons it's time to smile and wave. What happened to strategic alliances? To looking after our own sovereignty? Instead, we're sending out unarmed surveillance planes and hoping Beijing plays nice. But it gets worse. Much worse. You want to talk about censorship? Try living in Albo's Australia, where the SFD commissioner, hand-picked, no less, thinks deleting free speech is some noble cause. We've gone from fighting for democracy to flagging Facebook posts. And not just locally. These bureaucrats are trying to tell Americans what they can and can't see online. Think about that. A tiny, unelected office in Canberra trying to muscle in on the First Amendment. What happened to us? How did we go from mateship and freedom to mandates and censorship? We're being sold this idea that leadership means compliance. That strength is now offensive. That questioning power makes you the problem. And the worst part? There's barely a whisper from the so-called opposition. The Liberals helped create this monster, and now they're too scared to put it back in its cage. Not a peep from Susan Ley, not a shred of fight from the front bench. It's like watching a footy team refuse to take the field. And while all this is going on, our national institutions are crumbling under the weight of woke nonsense. Cricket Australia, the absolute cowards, have decided to scrap matches on Australia Day. Not because it clashes with scheduling, nah, but because they're scared someone might call them a colonizer on Twitter. They reckon it's respectful. Respectful to who? Not to the millions of Aussies who actually love this country and want to celebrate it. This isn't about inclusion. This is about erasing identity, and it's happening right under Albo's nose. Let me ask you something. What exactly does Anthony Albanese stand for? Because from where I'm sitting, all he stands for is appeasement. He won't push back on Beijing, won't call out the overreach of the SFD commissioner, and won't demand a meeting with the US president even though we've been running a trade surplus with them for years. We should be at the front of the queue. Instead, we're groveling at the back, waiting for scraps while Albo pretends everything's peachy. And it's not just foreign affairs. Back home, we're watching a slow, painful transformation of Australia into something unrecognizable. From the media to the classroom to the sports field, the new national pastime is hating our own history. And guess who's enabling it? That's right, Albanese and his band of spineless ministers. They don't just allow the cultural rot, they cheer it on. If you thought this was about politics, think again. This is about our future, our identity, our place in the world. Albo is setting us up to be passengers in our own country, silent, obedient, and grateful for the scraps. That's not the Australia I grew up in. That's not the Australia worth fighting for. You know what else is being erased? Accountability. Remember the promise to lower the cost of living? To make housing more affordable? To fix aged care? How's that going, mate? Rents through the roof, wages are stagnant, and the Reserve Bank's playing Russian roulette with interest rates. But Albanese? He's got time for climate conferences and photo ops with TikTok influencers while families are struggling to afford groceries. If that's leadership, I'm a kangaroo. And let's not forget his precious voice to Parliament. A $300 million referendum that divided the country, tanked trust, and achieved absolutely nothing except making every conversation feel like a political landmine. He knew it was doomed. Every poll showed it. But he pushed it anyway because image mattered more than impact. And now? He won't even talk about it. It's like it never happened. Mate, we've got a bloke in charge who governs like a PR intern. He's not leading the country, he's managing optics. And every time he gets called out, he sulks. Cries misinformation. Sends in the SFD thugs to scrub the internet clean. That's not democracy. That's digital dictatorship with a soft voice and a smug grin. You ever hear a prime minister talk so much and say so little? Albanese's speeches are like soggy toast, bland, repetitive, and somehow still hard to swallow. He bangs on about fairness, climate action, and working families, but when you peel back the layers, it's all fluff. Meanwhile, Australians are angry, tired, and being told to shut up and trust the process. That's not politics. That's gaslighting on a national scale. And where's the fight? Where's the bloody fire? The Liberals are missing in action, the Nationals are asleep at the wheel, and the media's too busy writing puff pieces about elbow suits. This is a one-party state with extra steps. And if you dare to question it, if you dare to post about it online, you're slapped with takedown notices, shadow bans, and public shaming. We've become a country afraid of its own voice. But you know what the real tragedy is? We let it happen. We handed the keys over. We believed the slogans. We thought things couldn't get worse. But under Anthony Albanese, things didn't just get worse, they got bloody surreal. This is the bloke who sold himself as a battler from the suburbs, a man of the people. Turns out, he's just another career politician addicted to spin and terrified of substance. And while Albo hugs dictators and dodges accountability, everyday Aussies are drowning. Try starting a small business in this climate. Try buying your first home. Try having a differing opinion on social media. It's not just hard, it's damn near impossible. And the Prime Minister's only solution? More regulation, more control, more silence. Well, I say enough. It's time to make noise, to rattle the cage, to remind Anthony Albanese that he works for us, not the other way around. Because this version of Australia, this soft, apologetic, over-regulated shadow of its former self, it's not what we signed up for. So, before we dive even deeper into the disaster that is Albo's foreign policy, before we unpack the cozy backroom deals with China and the humiliating failures on the world stage, I've got one thing to ask. Are you really okay with this? Because if you are, if you reckon shrinking in the corner while superpowers stomp around is the new Aussie way, then maybe you've bought into the lie too. But if you're not, if you still believe in an Australia that stands tall, that speaks up, that fights back, then it's time to say it out loud. Albo's little disappearing act on the global stage was bad. Wait till you see what's going on right here at home. It's not just incompetence anymore. It's a bloody dismantling of everything we once called normal. And Anthony Albanese? He's either asleep at the wheel or actively cheering it on. You want to know how deep this rot goes? Let's start with the schools. Under Albanese's watch, classrooms have become battlegrounds. Teachers are no longer educators, they're ideological foot soldiers. Maths? Science? That's boring now. Instead, your kids are getting lectures on gender theory and climate guilt before they can even spell multiplication. And if you dare to question it, if you ask whether maybe the focus should be on, I don't know, literacy rates instead of identity pronouns, you're branded a bigot. A relic, outdated. And Albo? He nods along, pats them on the head, and tells the media it's progress. Progress? Mate, if this is progress, I'll take a U-turn. We've got kids leaving school unable to read a newspaper, but they know how to write an email complaining about colonial oppression. That's the new curriculum under the Albanese doctrine: rewrite history, demonize success, and paint Australia as some wicked land built entirely on sins. Never mind the sacrifices, the resilience, the multicultural success story that we were. No, now it's all shame and silence. Meanwhile, back in Canberra, Albanese is surrounding himself with the same tired bureaucrats who never face an election but make every real decision. You voted for a prime minister, but you got a panel of unelected ideological drones instead. And the moment a scandal pops up, poof, swept under the rug. Remember the Brittany Higgins disaster? The cover-ups, the contradictions, the payout, paid with your tax dollars, before the case even played out properly in court? No answers, no consequences, just silence and smirks from those in power. And let's not ignore how the government treats any voice that doesn't toe the line. The censorship in this country has reached levels that would make the Chinese Communist Party blush. Our SFD commissioner is now some Orwellian overlord, empowered to remove anything from the internet they personally find harmful. And we're not just talking about death threats or illegal content. No, we're talking memes, opinions, criticisms of policy. They've got the power to force global tech giants to take down your posts if they don't fit the narrative. And Albo? He calls it keeping Australians safe online. Safe? Mate, the only thing we need protection from is this bloated government and its obsession with silencing its own citizens. But hey, maybe you're thinking, at least the economy's holding up, right? Wrong. We are in a full-blown cost of living crisis, and Anthony Albanese is still out there playing dress-up with world leaders, flying business class, sipping flat whites at summits that achieve sweet bugger all. Meanwhile, back here in the real world, families are choosing between petrol and groceries. People are living in tents. Kids are going hungry. And renters? Don't even get me started. Average Aussies are getting fleeced, jacked up rents, zero housing stock, skyrocketing interest rates, and Albo's plan is to throw a few bucks at affordable housing initiatives that won't break ground for another 5 years. The man talks like a union rep from the 70s, but he governs like a corporate stooge. His climate policies alone are a ticking time bomb. Net zero by 2050? Try zero jobs by 2030. Mines shut down. Farms under regulation. Tradies priced out. And all of it to do our bit while China pumps out more emissions in a month than we do in a year. But you won't hear that from Albo. Nah, he's too busy virtue signaling at climate conferences while rural communities collapse. Let's not forget his idea of leadership during a crisis. Remember the Lismore floods? The bushfires? Albanese showed up days late, posed for a photo, and left faster than you can say media stunt. He doesn't lead, he reacts. Slowly, with focus group soundbites and carefully curated optics. And yet the media still fawns over him like he's the second coming of Bob Hawke. At least Hawkeye had a spine. And this whole man of the people image? What a joke. Albanese hasn't stood in a Centrelink queue in his life. He hasn't worried about making rent or affording school supplies. He talks about his tough upbringing like it's a free pass to ruin the economy. Sorry, mate, your past doesn't excuse your present failures. You don't get to coast on childhood hardship while actively making life harder for everyone else. And here's the cherry on top: foreign influence. Under Albanese, Australia has never been more vulnerable to foreign powers meddling in our backyard. Chinese police stations popping up in Sydney suburbs, cyber attacks from offshore groups, and international donors linked to shady regimes funneling money into our political system. And what's Albo doing? Rolling out the red carpet. Whispering sweet nothings about regional stability. Selling us off bit by bit while pretending it's all diplomacy. He's not playing chess, he's being played. The worst part? He's not alone. This isn't just one man's failure, it's a systemic rot. Albanese is just the friendly face on a machine that now operates without transparency, without accountability, and without a damn clue. And we're the ones paying for it. Not just with our taxes, but with our freedoms, our identity, our future. Now look, I know some people will say this is all a bit much. That I'm being divisive. Good. We need division. We need people who are willing to call this out for what it is. A complete dismantling of Australian values under the guise of progress. And if that offends you, maybe you should be offended. Because you should be angry. You should be questioning everything. Where's the outrage from the media? Oh right, they're too busy fact-checking memes and taking selfies with politicians. The ABC is basically an arm of the Albanese PR machine, churning out soft coverage while ignoring the real damage. And don't get me started on the so-called independent fact-checkers, funded by the same people they're supposed to hold accountable. What a bloody farce. And while all this happens, while our Prime Minister fumbles, fiddles, and flat-out fails, we're told to stay quiet. To be kind, to comply. Well, stuff that. Being polite got us here. Being loud might be the only thing that gets us out. It's time to bring back accountability. Real accountability. Not just at the ballot box, but every day. Demand answers. Question everything. Because if we don't, Albanese and his lot will keep coasting on slogans while the country sinks. And let's not pretend this is the end of it. Because the next stage is already underway. Digital ID. Central bank digital currency trials. Mass surveillance under the banner of online safety. They want a future where everything you say, do, buy, or think is monitored, scored, and controlled. And Albo? He's fine with that, as long as it's inclusive. Inclusive my ass. We're not just heading for economic collapse, we're heading for a social collapse. A place where people are too scared to speak, too broke to fight, and too tired to care. That's the Australia Albanese is creating. Slowly, deliberately, with a smile. So what do? We get loud. We organize. We push back at every level. Talk to your mates, your neighbors, your family. Don't buy the spin. Don't settle for slogans. Demand truth. Demand strength. Demand the Australia we were promised, not the watered-down version Albo wants to sell us. And if you're still watching, if you're still fired up, then you already know what needs to happen. Don't just get mad. Get bloody active. Expose the lies. Mock the hypocrisy. Fight the narrative. Because if we don't, we'll wake up one day in a country we no longer recognize, policed by ideology, ruled by cowardice, and silenced by law. And that's not the Australian way. See you in the next one, and don't forget to slap that like button like it just stole your paycheck and told you it's for climate action. Oi, and if you're really fed up, grab the Make Politics Honest Again tee. Wear it to the next rent inspection, the next protest, or just down to the servo while fuel prices hit $10 a litre and Albo's off somewhere pretending it's all under control. Stay loud. Stay awake. And never stop calling out the spin, because this Australia, this isn't the one we were promised.